I was sitting at my desk late on a Wednesday afternoon, reviewing tenant emails, when my phone started buzzing across the wood surface. It was a video call from my cousin Leah. I almost ignored it. We didn't usually talk during the week. I answered anyway. She didn't say hello, she just looked off to the side of her screen, then back at me. "Are you in the family group chat?" she asked. "I muted it months ago," I said. "Why?" She hesitated. I could hear voices behind her, dishes clinking. "You might want to look," she said. "Your mom's hosting Sunday dinner, at your building." I didn't respond right away. "At my building?" I repeated. Leah nodded. "They're making plans." I thanked her, ended the call, and set the phone face down for a moment. The office was quiet, the hum of the air system, the faint smell of coffee from earlier. Then I turned the phone back over and unmuted the chat. The messages loaded all at once, photos first, then text. Pictures taken inside 9117 Roland House, my building, 4 stories. Retail on the ground level, 3 residential floors above, brick exterior, steel railings, purchased under my company 2 years earlier, after months of due diligence and a very quiet closing. I scrolled. My mother had posted, "Family meeting today. We've worked out a fair way to divide the building." Below that, my brother Ethan, "I'll take the 3rd floor corner unit. Best light for studio space." My sister Carla replied, "2nd floor works for me and the kids, close to the stairs." Another message from my mother, "Your father and I will use the top floor. It makes sense." Then, almost casually, "And of course, Nora can have the ground floor. She works from home." My grip tightened slightly around the phone. More messages followed, parking assignments, renovation ideas, someone asking if walls were load-bearing, someone else mentioning furniture measurements. A photo appeared of my mother standing in the largest unit, gesturing with a paper plate in her hand like she was giving a tour. I didn't feel angry, not yet. I felt still. I leaned back in my chair and took a breath through my nose. Outside my office window, traffic moved the way it always did. Nothing had changed out there. I opened my contacts and called my property manager, Daniel. "Hey," I said when he answered. "Quick question. Is my family inside Roland House right now?" There was a pause. Papers shuffled on his end. "Yes," he said carefully. "Your mother called yesterday. She said she was the owner and needed access for a family gathering. I told her only you were authorized. And she said you'd given her keys." I closed my eyes for half a second. I had, after surgery the year before, for emergencies only. I'd asked for them back. I never followed up. "Okay," I said. "Thank you." I ended the call and made another, this one to my attorney. "Mark," I said when he picked up, "I need you to come to Roland House now. Bring security." He didn't ask questions. "I'll be there in 15, he said. "Don't engage until I arrive." I gathered my laptop, my document folder, and the physical binder I rarely needed anymore. Before leaving, I glanced once more at the family chat. Leah had sent a private message. "They're measuring rooms," she wrote. "Your mom is showing people around like it's already decided." I locked my office door behind me and headed out. As I drove, I thought about something small and practical. I wondered which locks we'd need to change first. When I pulled up to the building, 20 minutes later, the lights were on in units that were supposed to be empty. Laughter echoed faintly through an open window. Mark's car was already parked out front. We stood together at the entrance for a moment. The building felt different, occupied in the wrong way. "Ready?" he asked. I nodded. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The sound reached us before the people did. Voices carried down the stairwell. Laughter, someone tapping on a wall, the scrape of a chair being dragged across concrete. We walked up slowly. No rush. The building had always been quiet at that hour. Hearing it this full felt wrong in a way I couldn't quite name yet. The 2nd floor unit was wide open. Folding tables had been set up along the far wall. Aluminum trays, plastic cups. The smell of roasted chicken and warm bread hung in the air. My mother had arranged food like it was a holiday. Ethan stood near the windows, holding a tape measure, stretching it from wall to wall. Carla's kids ran through the hallway, arguing over which room was whose. My father sat near the kitchen island, nodding along as someone talked about repainting. No one noticed me at first. I stood just inside the doorway and watched for a moment. The way people leaned into the space, the way they spoke about it already in the past tense. "We can knock this wall out," my uncle said, tapping plaster with his knuckles. "Parking should be assigned by need," Carla replied. "It's about time the family had a place like this," someone else added. Then my mother saw me. Her face brightened instantly, like my arrival confirmed something. "There you are," she said, smiling. "Perfect timing." She walked over and touched my arm lightly. "We're almost done deciding everything." "Deciding what?" I asked. "The layout," she said, gesturing around. "Who gets which floor? It's all very fair." Ethan turned toward me, tape measure still in his hand. "Don't worry," he said. "You're covered. Ground floor makes sense for you. You don't need much space." I looked at him, then at my sister, then at my parents. No one looked unsure. "Can we pause for a moment?" I said. The room quieted slowly. Not all at once. Conversations died off in pieces. Mark stepped forward beside me and set his briefcase on one of the folding tables. The sound was small, but it cut through the room. "I'm Mark Ellison," he said evenly. "I represent Nora." A few people exchanged looks. My father picked up a stack of papers Mark had already laid out. He flipped through them quickly, brows knitting. "What is this?" he asked. "Property records," Mark said. "Deeds, purchase agreements, ownership filings." My mother waved a hand dismissively. "We know she bought it. That's not the issue." "The issue," Mark replied, "is that this building is owned outright by Roland Holdings, LLC. Sole member, Nora." Silence settled heavier this time. Ethan lowered the tape measure. "But she used family money," my father said. "We helped her when she started out." I nodded once. "You loaned me $20,000 8 years ago when I started consulting. I paid it back within a year and a half, with interest." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. "That money has nothing to do with this building," I continued. "This was purchased with company profits." Carla crossed her arms. "You never told us you owned a whole building." "I invited everyone to the opening," I said. 18 months ago." No one answered that. Mark opened another folder. "Nora owns multiple properties," he said. "This one currently has active leases." Ethan blinked. "Leases?" "Yes," Mark said. "Tenants." My mother shook her head slowly, but it was empty. "2 units are between tenants," I said. "The rest are occupied, including the top floor." Carla looked around suddenly, like she was seeing the place differently. "You live here?" she asked. "Yes." A child dropped a toy. It clattered against the floor, loud in the quiet. My father cleared his throat. "We're not trespassing. We're family." "I gave my mom an emergency key," I said. "For emergencies." Mark reached into his briefcase again. "This," he said, placing a document on the table, "is a formal notice." The room held its breath. Outside, somewhere below us, a door closed. The building settled back into its familiar creaks. I looked around at everyone I'd known my whole life. Then I waited. No one spoke right away. The paper Mark had placed on the table sat between the trays of food and the scattered paper napkins. It didn't look dramatic, just clean pages, black text, signatures. My mother was the first to move. She picked it up, skimmed the top, then set it down again like it might stain her hands. "This is unnecessary," she said. "We're just having dinner." "You're hosting it in my residence," I replied, "and assigning yourselves space." Ethan exhaled sharply. "You're acting like we broke in." I didn't answer him. I reached into my bag and pulled out my laptop instead. I opened it, turned the screen toward them, and logged in. No password spoken, no explanation, just numbers. "This is the building ledger," I said. "Rent payments, lease dates, security deposits." I scrolled slowly. "Coffee shop downstairs," I continued. 3-year lease, on time every month. Another scroll. "Second floor northeast unit, graphic designer. Lease ends in November." Another. "Third floor west, young couple. Moved in 6 months ago." My mother frowned. Why are you showing us this? Because you're talking about moving into spaces that are already occupied, I said. Or about to be. Carla shifted her weight. We didn't know. That's the point, I said. Mark spoke again. Intent doesn't change authorization. He nodded toward the two security officers who had been standing quietly near the door since we arrived. They hadn't moved. They hadn't said a word. Their presence was enough. My father straightened his jacket. So what happens now? I closed the laptop. Now, I said, we reset. I paused, then continued. Step 1, everyone leaves the building tonight. A murmur rippled through the room. Step 2, locks are changed. Access is revoked. My mother's mouth opened, then closed again. Step 3, I said. Any future entry happens only with written permission, for a specific purpose, at a scheduled time. Ethan let out a short laugh. You're making rules like we're tenants. No, I said, like you're visitors. That landed harder than anything else. One of Carla's kids tugged on her sleeve. Mom, are we still eating here? She looked down at him, then back at me. You'd really kick us out? She asked. In front of everyone? I nodded once. I'm correcting a situation that shouldn't have happened. My mother's eyes filled, but her voice stayed firm. This building is too much for one person. I didn't respond to that. Mark slid the notice across the table a little closer to her. This documents unauthorized entry, he said. We're asking for voluntary compliance. And if we don't? My father asked. The security officer nearest the door spoke for the first time. Then we escort, he said. Calm, neutral. The word hung there. My aunt cleared her throat. Maybe we should go. She started gathering serving dishes, stacking them carefully. Others followed, quietly at first. Carla herded her kids toward the stairs. Ethan folded his tape measure and dropped it into his pocket without looking at me. My mother lingered. She stood in the middle of the room, hands clasped, looking around like she was memorizing it. I never thought you'd choose this, she said softly. I didn't choose this, I replied. I responded to it. She turned and walked out without another word. Ethan was the last to leave. He paused at the doorway, glanced back at the windows, the light, the space he'd already pictured as his. I told people I was moving in, he said. Then you should tell them you aren't, I said. The door closed behind him. The room was quiet again, plates half full, chairs out of place, a measuring tape lay forgotten on the floor. I looked at Mark. Next steps? He asked. I took out my phone. We secure the building, I said, and then I waited. We didn't talk much after that. Mark stayed while Daniel coordinated with the security team. The officers moved through the building quietly, checking doors, confirming which units were empty, making notes on their tablets. I walked each floor with them, not emotionally, practically. On the second floor, one of Carla's kids had left a backpack by the window. On the third, Ethan's measuring tape lay coiled near the wall like it had simply been dropped mid-thought. On the top floor, my kitchen still smelled faintly like food that wasn't mine. Daniel met me near the stairwell. We'll change every lock tonight, he said. Main entrance, unit doors, storage, roof access, keypads instead of physical keys, cameras at every entry point. Good, I said. Log every access attempt. He nodded. Already planned. That was the moment the situation stopped feeling personal. It became procedural. By the time the locksmith arrived, the building was empty. The echo had returned, the familiar quiet I was used to hearing when I came home late. I sat on the steps outside while work started. The city moved around me. A bus passed. Someone walked a dog. Nothing about the street suggested what had happened upstairs. My phone buzzed. The family group chat was active again. Ethan. Nora had us removed from her building over a family dinner. My mother. I don't recognize my own daughter anymore. Carla. My kids are shaken. This was handled badly. I read the messages once. Then I muted the chat again. Leah texted me separately. For what it's worth, she wrote, no one was arrested and the guards were calm the entire time. I replied with a simple thank you. Inside, drills hummed. Metal clicked. Doors opened and closed in sequence. Mark stood beside me for a moment, watching the locksmith work. "They may try again," he said, "especially if they convince themselves this was a misunderstanding." "If they do," I said, "we document it." He nodded. "That's the right approach." Just before midnight, Daniel handed me a new access card. "No emergency keys," he said. "Not to anyone." "That's fine," I replied. When I finally walked back up to my unit, everything felt reset. The air was cool, the lights responded instantly. The door locked behind me with a clean, final sound. I made tea. I didn't sit down right away. I walked the space once, checked windows, straightened a chair, picked up a plate someone had forgotten and set it in the sink. Then I sat. The building was quiet again. For about 3 weeks. The alert came on a Tuesday morning. Unauthorized access attempt, main entrance. I was already awake. Daniel called seconds later. "Your mother tried her old key. Police are on the way." "Okay," I said. "I don't need to come down." I didn't. Later that day, I reviewed the report. Timestamp, camera stills, official trespass warning issued. That night, the group chat lit up again. I didn't open it. I set my phone face down and waited. The confrontation didn't happen in person. It happened through paperwork. A certified envelope arrived at my office a few months later. Thick, formal, return address from a law firm I didn't recognize. I didn't open it right away. I finished my coffee, cleared my inbox, returned 2 calls, then I slid a letter opener under the seal and pulled the pages out carefully. It was a lawsuit, filed by my mother, Ethan, and Carla. They claimed ownership interests in Rowland House based on verbal family agreements and something called implied partnership. No dates, no documents, just statements. I scanned it once, then I forwarded the entire file to Mark. He called me an hour later. "This is weak," he said. "There's nothing here." "Will it go anywhere?" I asked. "Unlikely," he replied. "But it's designed to pressure you. They're hoping you'll settle to avoid the time and noise." "I won't," I said. "Good," he replied. "Then we proceed cleanly." The court process was slow and quiet. Filings, responses, motions. I didn't attend any hearings. I didn't need to. I stayed focused on my work. The building filled quickly, the vacant units leased, rent came in on schedule, the coffee shop renewed early. Then one afternoon, Mark called again. "The judge dismissed the case," he said. "Entirely." I waited. "They've been ordered to cover your legal fees," he added. 11,200. I thanked him and ended the call. There was no celebration, no relief rush, just confirmation. The reaction came later. Ethan left me a voicemail. Long, angry. He called me cold, corporate, said I'd chosen money over family. My mother sent an email that read more like a letter. She wrote about betrayal, about values, about how I'd embarrassed them. Carla didn't write at all. Instead, something else happened. Ethan sent another message a few weeks later, shorter this time. He asked if I had any entry-level roles available. Property management, anything to get his foot in the door. Carla followed not long after. She wanted advice, just advice, about investing, about getting started. My father mentioned, casually over a phone call, that he'd always been interested in commercial property. Asked if I ever considered partners, I declined each request the same way, politely, briefly, in writing, not because I was angry, because nothing had changed. They didn't want reconciliation, they wanted access, and now they understood the rules. Around that time, a local business magazine reached out. They were doing a profile on small-scale developers. Someone had recommended me. The article ran the following month. It talked about my transition from consulting to real estate, about calculated risk, about learning systems quietly and applying them carefully. My mother called the editor. She complained the article didn't mention family support. The editor told her they only printed what they could verify. I found that out secondhand. I didn't comment. That evening, I walked through Rowland House after work. The lobby smelled like coffee and clean floors. Someone laughed upstairs. A door closed softly. Everything was in order. I unlocked my unit and stepped inside. On my desk, framed and simple, were the original property records. I stood there for a moment reading my name. Then I turned off the light and went on with my evening. Time did what it usually does when you stop feeding a situation. It moved on. Roland House stayed full, quiet, predictable. The kind of predictable that only comes from systems working the way they're supposed to. Rent arrived on schedule. Maintenance requests were routine. The coffee shop downstairs sent over pastries every so often, always with a handwritten note thanking us for keeping the building secure. Daniel ran everything smoothly. I checked reports once a week, sometimes less. A few months after the lawsuit was dismissed, I refinanced the building. Nothing aggressive, just enough to pull out equity while rates still made sense. That capital went straight into another purchase in a neighboring city. Smaller, older, solid fundamentals. No one in my family knew about it, not because I was hiding it, because it wasn't relevant. The calls slowed down after that. Messages became infrequent. Holidays passed with short, polite texts. No one mentioned the building anymore. They talked around it instead, like avoiding a topic that still felt tender. I noticed something else too. When people brought it up outside the family, the story had changed. Now it was about misunderstandings, about emotions, about how things got out of hand. No one mentioned breaking in. No one mentioned dividing floors or assigning parking. That was fine. I didn't correct them. At work, things expanded quietly. One building became two became four. I hired slowly, carefully, property managers first, then maintenance teams, then a leasing agent I trusted to say no as easily as yes. By the end of the year, the portfolio had grown across 3 cities. Commercial and residential. Nothing flashy. All stable. One afternoon, while organizing files, I found the original inspection photos from Roland House. Brickwork close-ups, stairwell lighting, the roof before repairs. I printed one and placed it next to the framed deed, not as a reminder of my family, as a reminder of process. Ownership wasn't about the name on the paper, it was about the decisions that followed, the boundaries, the follow-through, the quiet moments where no one was watching and you still did things correctly. I thought back to that Sunday dinner sometimes, not with resentment, with clarity. They hadn't seen the building as work, or responsibility, or risk. They'd seen it as a finished thing. I closed the file drawer and locked it. That night, I walked home through the lobby like I always did, nodded to a tenant checking mail, smelled fresh coffee beans being ground downstairs for the morning rush. Upstairs, I made dinner, cleaned the counter, set my phone face down. There were no new messages. I slept well. And that, more than anything, felt like resolution. These days, my evenings are quiet in a way I didn't always expect. I walk through the lobby, past the coffee shop as they close for the night, and take the stairs instead of the elevator. It helps me slow down. I like hearing the building settle, doors closing, someone's footsteps above me, life moving in orderly layers. When I reach my floor, I unlock the door, step inside, and turn on one lamp. I don't rush anything. Dinner is simple. Cleaning up takes a few minutes. After that, I usually sit by the window and look out over the street. Nothing dramatic ever happens anymore, and that's the point. Every now and then, someone will ask how I handled that situation with my family. They expect something sharp, some kind of final line. I don't give them one. I just say I put systems in place and stuck to them. Boundaries don't require speeches. They require consistency. A few weeks ago, a colleague mentioned a friend who was having trouble with relatives showing up at one of her rental properties unannounced. They say it's just family, she said, but it feels off. I told her to document everything, change access, treat it like business. She nodded like something had clicked. That happens more often than people realize. Success attracts curiosity, sometimes it attracts entitlement, and sometimes the people who once doubted you decide they should have a say once the results are visible. I've learned that calm, written clarity goes further than any argument ever could. Tonight, I rinse my mug, dry it, and place it back in the cabinet. I check the door once, lock it. Then I turn off the lights and let the quiet do its work. If this story felt familiar, you're not alone. If you enjoyed listening, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. It helps this small community grow. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. 2 more stories will be waiting for you next.